Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Milsurp World Podcast. I'm your host today, Danny. We're joined by Aaron, Jared, and a special guest, Michael. You'd like to say hello, fellas?
Hi, fellas.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Nice. So Michael is our guest. Michael is a Patreon member who joined the Discord, and he was on the list. And whittling through that list, one person at a time here. I know it's been a while since we've had our last podcast. I'm not sure what number this is, 40 something. It's in the high 40s. But yeah, today's topic is pretty interesting. I think we're going to dive into kind of the nitty gritty into a pretty good
47, Danny.
47, nice. We're just talking about the AK. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to be talking into the nitty gritty of sort of gun finance, personal finance as far as guns when it goes. Michael is going to kind of lead the way with a lot of that and let him kind of drive a bit. But before we get into that, Michael, we have to ask you the questions. How did you get into Milsurp, and what was your first Milsurp?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks so much, guys, for having me on. I've been a fan of your show since I started collecting, which was back in October of 21. So I haven't been into it that long, and I was going to go to a gun show, and I just Googled, what do you do at a gun show? And Danny, your video about
That's
what
cool.
to do popped up. So
Yeah.
started that and just started binging after that. So how did I get into Milsurps? So I grew up, I think like a lot of folks in the early 2000s, loved video games, Call of Duty and Medal of Honor and all that good stuff. But I've always really enjoyed swords, and watching Tales of the Gun on the History Channel when I was a kid, the Japanese episode was pretty cool, right? That talked about like the Type 30 bayonet and how it was so long because they were trying to inspire just the Japanese civilian kind of peasantry populace into, hey, you too can be a samurai. We've given you a long bayonet, and we'll do, sword fencing training and all that good stuff. But my favorite gun on that show was the Type 44, and I was just, man, that's a super cool gun. But anyway, grew up and then never owned firearms. Didn't really have that much of an interest in buying them. And then I lived over in Japan for a few years. And once I got back, I got thinking like, oh, hey, like I could purchase a Type 44. And then unfortunately my father passed away. And so I inherited some of his guns. And really it was just like, well, I've got, a couple of hunting shotguns and a couple of revolvers. So I'm a gun owner now. Why not look into it and start collecting? And so my first gun was a Type 44. My
Nice.
first Milsurp was a Type 44.
Nice. That's a good first.
It's an odd first.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun thinking about like most people got Mosins because they were super cheap and all that and everything else. And we'll touch on this as we get into today's topic. But right, the first time I bought a gun was really when I had disposable income. And so like before that, it was like, hey, I need to pay for food, and so I was able to look at something that wasn't $100. My Type 44 is a little rough. The stock's got some, it's got some nice dings to it. Like it looks well used. The bluing's really nice, and it's one of the scrubbed mums where they got like half of it. So the portion that's left is really pretty, and then somebody just like kind of nicked the top of it.
Just done in a hurry.
It does not have a mum.
You just say partial,
but had a dust cover. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think another weird thing, right? When you first start, you don't know what you're doing or what sites are like sites to buy off of it. So I bought it off guns.com. And I think that's literally like the only time I've ever seen a gun on that website that's anywhere decently priced. So after shipping and the FFL transfer fee, it was $715, I think. So not bad for not bad for a Type 44. Not incredible, but
Yeah, not bad.
But yeah, not bad. So yeah, and then it just started from there, and went to more and more gun shows. I was out in Washington State at the time, And Danny, it's fun to hear you talk about all the great deals out there because it's totally true. Just the number of good shows with good Milsurp tables is it was pretty fun. So snagged up some more guns out there, and then I live over in Virginia now, and the collecting market is a little bit rougher. Moved here about a year ago, so yeah, that's me and how I got into stuff.
That's cool. The Type 44 is it's neat because like it's something that you had to have known about and liked and done research for. It's almost like most guys' first Milsurp is just something they just happen to come across. Like they happen to come across a Mosin or an SKS in their local gun shop. They buy it, and then that does it. Then they're like, oh shoot, these old guns are cool, and then they get into. I know a lot of people, they tend to be really into like the first thing they bought. That kind of like gets them into others. I don't know if that's where you're at now. Do you kind of just exclusively look for Japanese stuff, or kind of just anything?
I definitely my collection it's all over the place. So I think I would say it's mostly World War One and then Japanese. So I've got a Type 35 02/45. Those are the ones that like right at the end of the World War II they took old Type 35 receivers.
Did you post that on the Discord? I think I remember that.
Yeah, it was. I for whatever reason I just had really good luck at gun shows. Like a lot of people hate on gun shows, but I really enjoy them because it's just like you find one table with one guy who doesn't know what he has or does and just undervalues it. So I got this for I think that was $750. It's probably a $2,000 gun.
Can't relate.
And
I can't relate.
yeah. So I've just had good luck. So anyway, I really enjoy my Japanese arms. And then, like I said, I lived over in Japan for a few years. And so I also had some Japanese swords, some more traditional katana, but then also I have a kaigunto, a Japanese Navy sword used during World War II. So, yeah.
A kaigunto or a shingunto?
But the rest of the stuff.
Is it like in the modern mountings? Is it a kaigunto or a shingunto?
Nerd.
The kai.
Yeah. So a kaigunto.
That's the older one, right? It's old sword.
That's a Q-gunto, or at least so Q-gunto is the Western style mountings of a traditional blade. So those were like Meiji era where they were adopting more modern. So it's a Shingunto, but it's a type of so Shingunto is like the newer type swords, and then a Kaigunto is a Japanese Navy sword. So Kai means ocean in Japan. I'm betting this topic's probably going to come up at some point, so I'll just get it out of the way now. So I lived in Japan because I'm part of the Navy, and the U.S. Navy, and was stationed over there. And yeah, boring, dorky disclaimers that I'm only speaking on behalf of myself tonight, and nothing I talk about represents the U.S. government or the Department of the Navy.
Good.
I'm a JAG officer, so a lawyer in the Navy. So if I didn't do that disclaimer, somebody'd probably call me out on it.
That's good. Good. Yeah. Aaron was ready. He was getting ready. No, it's good to do the disclaimer.
Saw it in your eyes, man.
My dad was in the Navy.
I just pretty recently got into Japanese swords, and so you saying that is like what I have. The last one that I got I was told it was an Imperial Landing Forces sword, but then I was reading Jim Dawson's book, his sword book about it, and he called it something completely different in there. Like it wasn't necessarily the Marine sword, but that's what I told it was. So now that you talk about the Kaigunto, now I'm thinking that's a Kaigunto.
It could be. If you post photos on, oh man, even better.
So
it's a little hard to tell. Okay. Yeah. So oh gosh, I'm forgetting what the term is, but the way the hilt is wrapped is usually indicative of kind of mid to late war, and I want to say that like that has something to do with like a Type 3. It's like a not a replacement, but they started doing that towards the end of the war.
Yeah, now.
But yeah, that Dawson book.
Mm-hmm.
That Dawson book is fantastic. If a person's looking to get into Japanese swords, definitely get that book. I haven't bought Ian's company's new book, and I've been meaning to, but I'm a little worried that it's beautiful, but it's $130, and I've already got Dawson, which was like $160,
Yeah.
and I'm worried that the new book is beautiful but doesn't add anything. I have no idea though. I haven't read it. I asked that on one of the Facebook groups, and somebody was like, "No, it totally adds a bunch." So I'll probably end up getting that soon.
Yeah. That's cool. To the dozen people liking swords, that's good to
Yeah.
good to hear. It's a pretty recent thing with me, liking these. So I'm gonna reach out and get some others soon.
Yeah, definitely. You got an NCO sword too, didn't you?
Yeah, it was in a vet grouping. I'll show it to you real quick.
Yeah, if anybody is looking to branch off non-Milsurp stuff, Japanese swords are pretty awesome.
I mean, it's still Milsurp technically, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
That's awesome. That's pretty cool.
What a nice clean blade there, Danny.
yeah. It looks like it was polished. Not sure when, but this came. It was a Navy Seavey. I was given the guy's name. I forgot it, but he brought this sword and some other stuff. I have a sword, a flag, a Japanese canteen, a Japanese bugle, and a few other little things from bayonets, stuff from his collection. But he was a Navy Seavey, and you can look up his record. And he landed on islands, like the big battles, like Iwo Jima and stuff, but like a week after combat wrapped up. So he was there kind of perfect time to pick things up. And so this sword came from a bunch of stuff from his estate. But cool. Recent acquisitions. Almost skipped for going into a topic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't have any because that bitch is expensive.
Yeah, it's like you're making payments on something expensive is almost like buying little things, like every month or whatever. Oh my goodness, Aaron! What is that thing? What's that called again?
I mean, it's an M95, obviously. I did an unboxing video, an unboxing stream. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the audio properly, so it's a lost video.
Uh-oh.
I thought I watched that. Good.
That's this one.
So
I did get
one.
another one. This is a second one from RTI. Roll that dice again.
Rolling the dice again.
This is a long rifle this time.
Was it worth it?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Nothing missing on this one. Minor rust, needs to be cleaned still. Still have the tag on it. But overall, it's in pretty good shape, but it's pretty worn. Like the finger grooves are really worn down. But other than that, like it's pretty good shape. Receiver and barrel match. There's the remains of a stock serial, but who knows? So.
Yeah, for the price, you can't beat it for a long rifle.
No. The rear sight is frozen at the max. So that's about the only like major issue I've discovered on it so far. I don't know if it's just stuck or like it's.
You give it a little love tap.
I haven't yet because I haven't messed with this one still yet. I'm still working on the other one, but that was something I did notice that it was kind of just stuck. But other than that, Everything's good. I would do it again, especially since they were doing that. Hitting my ceiling. They were doing that sale for $199.
Yeah, $200 for a Milsurp. Especially, before RTI was importing all their stuff, man, it wasn't like the easiest thing to get an M95 long rifle.
That's what I'm telling everybody.
Especially an 8x50, but it's
No, that's what I
a
was
roll
telling
of the
everybody.
dice, though.
I was telling everybody this in the stream is before RTI imported these, an 8x50R rifle you could expect to find in that condition, in pretty rough condition, because they're either going to be from Ethiopia or some other African country where Italy was involved, or they were captured World War I and then not taken care of. So most of the time they're in pretty terrible condition. You're actually the given rule for an 8x50R rifle or Stützen is you're going to find them in pretty crap condition. So the fact that I can get one for $200 or $250 is insane, because those were in crap condition $600, $700 pre RTI. So like that, they just didn't exist. Especially the Stützens, the short rifles or the carbines, they didn't exist. I've never seen one for sale in 8x50R before RTI imported all of them.
What do you think RTI has done to M95 prices? Just kind of suppressed all of them?
I don't think it's done much at all. I don't really think it has done much at all, because the market's just not that big. And then it's not really suppressed Carcano prices. Those have not really gone down. And I would argue that they've gotten more Carcanos than they have M95s. And they've also put out more of those because those have been steadily cheaper than the M95s. I would say it's not really depressed the value because it's still 8x50R, so they're still like a dead, obscure cartridge. So it's definitely not... That's a little better on my face. It's definitely not doing much in terms of the market as far as that goes, because 8x50R is a dead cartridge.
Yeah, that's exactly why I didn't want an M95 and 8x50. I know it's technically original and cooler or whatever, but like, I'll take it by 56. It's fine. I can get ammo for that. I can actually shoot it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can reload for it too.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to give you info. Yeah, you can reload for it. The PPU makes boxer brass for it.
Yeah. You can even convert 8x56 boxer brass into 8x50 pretty easily. You just have to... It requires the moving of the shoulder, so you do need to anneal it to make it a little bit looser to do it. So it's a little bit more involved, but not near as hard as making 8x52R Siamese.
Danny, do you reload? No, you other guys do.
I used to. I kind of stopped. I had a reloading room in my old house, and it got taken over. And so all my reloading stuff is just in boxes now. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Didn't do anything cool. Jared is the reloader. He's the guy I reach out to if I need like load data or whatever. Like today I reached out to him about some this 6.5 Norwegian loading data. Sorry.
And I forgot to get it for you.
And no, it's okay. So I got a comment on one of my videos, and I get these comments every now and then, basically saying that I'm going to blow up my Norwegian Krag or something, damage it, whatever, by shooting 6.5 by 55 commercial through it. And I get those comments every now and then. It's not a big deal. But this guy was Norwegian, and so he just basically said he could send me some info on it that sort of proved it, because I asked him for sources. I'm like, dude, please send me a source, because I can't find anything in English about this. So what he sent me today was load data from a Norwegian hand loading or reloading book, and didn't quite understand what it meant. But I sent it to Jared, because Jared's the reloading guy, and he knows what it means.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you feel...
And it was just load data.
So like it's just...
It was like anything. Yeah, it was like a copy of a page of a book of load data in Norwegian. Like
Yeah.
when I looked at it,
Uses
I'm like,
different powders, but
yeah.
it's the same thing.
And what I was going to do is, because I've got, I don't know, 6 or 7 books on this, I was just going to go get the speed, velocity, and all that, and then this is what the load data is.
Mhm.
But if you follow a book, the books are written safe. There's a low and a high, and they're really written to be safe because it's a liability.
Yeah.
So you're like, even though you're in the realm of fast or pressure spikes, you should still be okay because it's the spec. So I was going to compare the Milsurp spec given out of Cartridges of the World with load data from books that I have and see, because what I saw was these are different kinds of bullets and this is the different powders you can use and this is the speed. That was it.
Yeah.
So if it's less power than the military cartridge, I don't understand the point of it. But even more like modern commercial made ammunition, 8mm is a good one. 8mm ammunition commercial should be, and I believe it should be weaker than hand loads, because what if you put it into a Gewehr 88 or a commission rifle? It's a weaker chambering than a 98. We Mauser
sure?
built safeties into the gun.
Are we sure?
Mauser built safeties into the gun.
I'm just saying the Turks used Turkish ammo with Gewehr 88s.
They
And
did.
I don't remember the Turkish all blowing up.
Maybe it's all
In fact,
maybe it's all in Turkish.
what's the one I always make fun of, Danny? The Gewehr 8805 815 35 or whatever.
I think it's 38. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got a bunch of updates on it.
Yeah,
but like
it looks like a Mauser, but it's still a Gewehr 88.
The only time that really does not apply, and I'm like being like covering my ass, is if you get 4570, you can't put 4570 for a Marlin 93 in a trapdoor.
Oh yeah.
That's a bad day. They actually make commercial trapdoor ammo for that reason. They also make 30-06 for M1s. That is a bolt velocity thing, and that's about bend and op rods. So the gun is safe, you just bend an op rod.
Now, there's still some people that argue about that, too.
And it'll shoot, but I'm not going to risk my $1,000 M1 on ammo from the store unless it says it's for this rifle.
I'm not the one arguing with you. I've just
I know you're not.
About it.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is it's my investment, which kind of ties in for today.
Hey.
And I'm not going to screw up my investment because I have a bullhead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
I've had this discussion on Reddit, actually. They had somebody ask if you shoot less now than you used to, and I'm like, oh yeah. I haven't shot anything in like 2 years.
Yeah.
As I've got kids, I've got responsibilities. I don't have time.
I can't find primers.
Those damn responsibilities.
We had a good discussion on that point. So I live in Virginia, and the 2 range options available are public land ranges that are for sighting in of hunting rifles. So they're closed from the 1st of April through the last day of September, I think.
Oh.
They're closed more than half the year. And then the other options are, no joke, $100 an hour to go shoot. And so, like, I shot rifles here at one day at the beginning of the season, and just life took over. And then I shot it like the very last day of the season. And now I won't shoot rifles for the next 6 months because I refuse to spend half of an M95 on an hour of range time.
Yeah,
that is a bad investment.
That's 2/3 of a Carcano.
You gotta really want to go. Is it like per person, or is it just like per lane, and like you could split it with a couple people maybe?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Outdoor range?
Yeah, outdoor ranges. There's just not a lot of public land or there's not a lot of land that is not developed or shootable out here because the population density is so high. I'm right on the coast, which makes sense. That's where the Navy bases are.
Mhm.
So just a lot of population, not a lot of shootable land.
That makes sense. The closest public range that I can go to, not public, but a private range that I can pay for it's $20 for the day.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So
There you go.
I mean, like, there's a big difference there, but I just still can't make time to get out there.
My range that I went to in Washington State was kind of up in this like forested part of the mountains, and it was like $13 for the day. It was gorgeous. You got like snow there when it wouldn't be snowy down lower, and the pine trees, and just like smelled really nice.
You're
It's
making
just like
Danny
a great
miss
place to
Matt
go shooting.
Washington. You're making Danny miss it.
Yeah.
I can see it in his eyes.
I was just wondering, was it up in a park? It was like a stone, it was a really like a rock quarry or something that they turned into the range.
It
wondering
wasn't.
if
It
it's the
wasn't a
same
rock
one.
quarry. I don't think so. This was up in by Bellingham,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
not in a quarry, but kind of was up elevation a little bit.
It was like the highest elevation shooting range that I was ever been in is at the range. It was the one where I shot my 7.62 by 39 Arasaka. That one was like up in the mountains. It's so you're like shooting, and then you like walk 100 yards over, and you have this like gorgeous view of like the valley and everything. And that was pretty. Washington's one of those states that it's like California. It's a gorgeous state. It's just ruined by the people. So I think I got out of there right before. I think they passed some more laws and stuff fairly recently there. So
Yeah, they just passed a very restrictive assault weapons ban. Yeah, it's I
I just want to know
don't
what
necessarily
I
need to jump down that tangent, but it's going to be very restrictive.
yeah, there's a lot of
And it's not.
there's a lot of gun tubers in like Washington and Oregon. I think they both just passed some stuff recently. So it just sucks for them Cascadians.
Time to move to Idaho.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's where all the Californians are moving, man. Just talk to some Idahoans about it. They'll let you know. Man, so recent
I was
purchases.
thinking,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, never mind. Go ahead. M95.
You're at M95. Jared still
Jared
paying
didn't
off
have
paying off the 34, and then
Paid
Mike-
off. I'm just recovering from it.
Oh yeah, well, sort of the same thing. Kind of, it's like recovering your savings or whatever. Then Michael, you buy anything like
So-
recently, last month or so?
I did. I nickel and dime myself, and the three behind me are all new. So, first is an RTI Carcano. It's half disassembled and half clean because I didn't have any Croyle on me, and the screws are just stripped to pieces. I wanted a pre-World War I date, and I'm really happy with it. Like grand total, it was like 200 and like 225, I think, after shipping.
What year?
And I think it's a 1901 Brescia.
Wow.
I think it's going to clean up really nicely, but yeah, the screws. I had to literally cut a groove into a screw because either it had been wire wheeled to heck or somebody had like shaved it off. It literally didn't have a notch in it, so I literally took a file and filed my own notch so I could get it disassembled. And so I got the handguard off and everything else, but the two screws on the receiver holding in everything here are just not moving. So
I do like those little carbines. They look like they would be fun.
Yeah, they're handy little things.
I got a different one from KY Gun Company. And that was like $200 a year ago or so, but it was mid-30s dated, and I wanted the World War I history. I've been really interested in Italian front World War I, and so that's the second piece. these two guns are the only guns I've ever bought off of RTI, just because the way things go, I'm not really willing to pay more than $200 for a gun from them. Maybe I'll pay a little bit more if it's something else, but I think it's just the risk is too great. But I was really happy with this one, which was one of their parts list guns. I
that's
think
the one
those
I
are
helped you
actually
with.
yeah. So this is a 1886/95. So it was marketed as an 88/95. But Aaron helped me out and pointed out some
Lift it up a
things
little
that
bit.
made it.
Lift it up a little bit.
Uh,
Yeah, there you go. Like, no, hold it so you can see the magazine.
Yeah. So, oh, I didn't take the gun lock off. I have a,
The gun lock on
I have a
it.
son, and right, yeah, that most dangerous weapon here. I have gun lock on all my guns, which is a good compromise, so I can store them out in the open, but each one has a lock. Anyway,
That gun's its own lock.
right? Yeah. So, wire wheel to heck. It's super interesting to me because it feels like it's sanded. Aaron, you were talking about that with your
Yeah. The M95 I
RTI.
have, it feels like it, but it's just worn down.
Yeah.
I would imagine
Yeah,
it probably set out because they all set outside in the wind, and it's just been worn down with sand hitting it.
Yeah.
That's all I can think
But I'm
of.
super happy with it. So I'll never fire it because the receiver is cracked, which was why RTI had it on the Projects gun. But even getting the caliber again, it's a dead caliber, so I'm totally happy with a wall hanger. And after
that's
shipping,
very interesting. That's an interesting like emergency conversion situation gun right there, because that is the 1886 model converted to the 8x50R cartridge.
You think that's why it cracked?
Yeah,
I was going to ask that.
It's a possibility, although I wouldn't say for sure. I don't think that's probably it, because they converted a lot of the 88s to that, and the 88s are the exact same. They're just the throat is different. They made it thicker. If you show the barrel where it connects to the receiver on that mic,
British call that the Knox form.
So my 86, that gap between where the receiver connects to the barrel is only about this thick, and when they converted them to the 50R, they made it bigger to be able to handle the pressure. So his is correctly converted. So it's not like that's definitely not something that was done haphazardly. That was a correct conversion. It's got the right rear sights on it. It's got the updated rear sights for the smokeless cartridge. So it was definitely not a situation like the Vetterlies, where they shoved a sleeve in it or whatever. But like, this was a conversion, emergency conversion, but I would say it was properly done. So I don't know what caused it to crack. Who knows?
Probably because they shot the shit out of it.
Yeah.
How does the barrel look on it?
It's like, it's okay. It's not horrendous, but it's not great. Yeah. But after shipping, it was $185, I think. So, like I said, $200 is I think a good place to roll the dice on RTI, just because of some of the problems you find. But I was super happy with both of these. I think the screws on the Carcano are a little unfortunate, but that's surplus. This one was really cool. So that's 2 out of the 3. And then third one, like I said a little bit ago, I have gone shooting rifles literally twice in the last year, just for timing and lack of ranges. But at my last time, a guy next to me just pulled out a Swedish M38, and I was like, "Oh, hey, look, it's a Milsurp." And so we got chatting, and he had picked it up at a local gun store that I hadn't been to because the range. Oh, this is the other thing, right? The public range, the only one available, is an hour and like 15 minutes away. So it's challenging, but it's a nice range and people are nice there. So this guy and I got talking, and he talked about this gun store that he said had a decent amount of Milsurps. And so I left the range and went there and found this guy, which is a Dutch M95.
Oh no,
And
not the Dutch.
yeah, I'm super happy with this one for a few different reasons. So this is the East Indies version, the KNIL, the nil.
So that's a 303 one.
So that's the question, because if you look at the bayonet lug on it, it is been modified to fit the Japanese Type 30 bayonet. And so the question is, who did that? Was it the Japanese during their occupation of the Dutch East Indies during the war? Or was it the Indonesians during the war when they also got in the mix? Or was it the Indonesians after the war after they got a bunch of Type 30s? I'd like to think. I'd like to think it was the Japanese because I think that'd be a more interesting piece of history. But I don't have any evidence, and trying to figure it out online has been a little challenging. There's a good section on Mannlichers on gun boards and some good discussion by some folks who specialize in Dutch M95s, but nobody really has a clue about it. So Aaron, to your question, is it 303? I don't know. It's definitely not 6.5 Dutch, but I don't have any 7.7 Japanese on me, and I don't have any 303 on me, and I haven't done a chamber cast. So it's not 6.5 Dutch because the hole on the barrel is way way larger in diameter.
Well,
And
Dude, that would be cool as shit if it was 7.7 Japanese.
yeah,
I mean,
there's
it's essentially the same thing.
that's what I was actually going to say. Is
303.
if
I
you
mean,
check,
I'm sorry, 303 rimless. That'd be
yeah,
really cool. If it
they're
was
the
303.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, like the
It
better 303.
There's an IMA auction or a listing that's sold out now, but for a Japanese modified Dutch M95, and it came like it has some markings on it, some faded paint on the stock. Mine doesn't have anything like that to give me any information, so I'll probably never know. But I think it's super interesting, and like I said, Japanese arms are one of the things that are my favorite about my collection. And I think on top of that, the condition of the rifle is really nice. The bluing is really good.
It looks really good. They tend to be pretty rough because they were used.
Yeah, way better than most nils. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The one unfortunate thing is that it's missing its top handguard. So
yeah, I noticed something was
if
missing.
you're listening to this, join the Discord and I will buy your handguard off of a Dutch M95 for a large amount of money, which I can afford to do because this gun was marked at 350, and then that had a slash through it to 250.
Oh,
or to 300. Yeah, so it was 350 originally. That had a slash through it to 300. That had a slash through it to 250. And I looked at it and I was like, I bet that this puppy is never going to sell and I can get it for lower than that. And so I offered them 200. And he called the shop owner called up the owner, or excuse me, the shop owner had it on
it was
consignment.
on commission.
Yep. Called up the gun owner, and he looked over it. He looked over at me, the shop owner, and he was like, "How much?" And I was like, 200. And he was like, "No, that's what you said first. How much now?" And I was like, "I'm not going to change my offer before you actually ask him." And so I said 200, and then the gun owner agreed. So I got this with my CNR license for $200, and it's in super nice condition, just missing the handguard. It's not numbers matching, which is unfortunate, but the condition, and then especially the bayonet.
Those KNIL guns tend to be in horrible condition. Like they tend to be like super rough. So I'm not surprised whatsoever that they would be unmatching. Just like the M95s you see, they're in rough shape. Like they've been mated together with whatever parts they have on hand.
Doesn't rain where that's from.
It doesn't rain in
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yeah. And so I'm almost 100% Dutch heritage as well. And so like that piece was really interesting. And then when we lived in Japan, we traveled down to Bali. And so having been to Indonesia and seen some of the kind of Dutch colonial history there as well, it was just like, man, that's an awesome pickup. So
Now
I've
you
been
got to
really
collect
happy with this.
all the
with this
Dutch
guy.
M95s.
Yeah. Oh man, even just watching the Sea and Arsenal videos on it was exhausting. I can't imagine just the level of knowledge
Yeah.
and like examples that you have to find.
I've had
That's
so
a-
many people ask me, and I'm like, no.
Yep. So those are my new pickups. I'm like I said, nickel and diming because I've got a few guns that are higher priced that are on my list that I want to save up for, but I keep finding good deals for like $200, and that's how it gets you.
Yep.
Let them find you. That's
Yeah.
what I do. You look for stuff? Nope. I let them find me.
Yeah.
Do we
Stuff
want to
has
get
been.
into our topic of the day, Danny?
Yeah. We can get right into the old. So Michael is very organized, and he has some. He made a PDF.
One quick thing, Danny. Did you have any new guns?
Yeah, my recent acquisitions. Well, they're still at Joel's. I have to pick them up. I haven't had time to go, but I have 3 waiting for me at Joel's.
Yeah, we don't ask Danny because he always has like 14 to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Just 3. Oh, I got a Dyson V11 Torque. That's been really cool. It's got some like quick detach features on it.
Yeah.
Pretty good range. Like 30 to 60 minute runtime. It's been kind of a game changer.
That's pretty good
in the household.
How's the suction?
Very good. It's got 3 modes for the suction touchscreen. It's got a little battery indicator on the back with minutes. So it's been a game changer around the Hayes household lately. So it's been pretty good. Now, so actual, my wife actually came up with that. She's like, you got to mention the Dyson during the podcast. No, it's a Persian Norwegian Krag, an 1894 long rifle, and a Colombian 1940 FN contract. So, yep.
It's awesome. I've been wanting to get it.
Which one?
I said I've been wanting to get a Colombian. It seems like there's not that many of them.
Yeah, I'm surprised. The guy that sold it, he listed it on our on our Discord, and I was like, well, you showed like all of his Mausers on the table, and I asked for had a Buenos Aires that I've been wanting, the model 1933, because that's made at Mauser Obendorf, and I love the pre-war Mauser contracts. Like those are just really cool to me, like the Brazilians and Chileans. But then, the Buenos Aires police carbines. I think it's a police that got them, the model 1933. But I just went with the Colombian, which was the 1940 contract, which is pretty cool. There's one page in Anthony van der Linden's FN Mauser book. There's one page about it, and it basically starts off saying, not a lot's known. We don't really know like this and that, but here's some observations. Yeah, pretty much. And it doesn't even have. So when Joel got it in at Panzerfaust Armory, he's like, "What model is this? Like, what do I put this in my book as?" And I sent him a picture of the page in the book. They don't even know. There's no model name for it. It's like the Colombian 1940 contract is a blah blah blah. And it's like, is it the 1940? Is it an FN 1924, that catch-all term, or is it just a 1930? I don't know, but it's one of those. It's one of those weird. But it's a Colombian, not converted to 30-06, because tons of them were converted to 30-06. It's in just 7mm Mauser, God's favorite caliber, and so I was like,
the Lord's caliber.
Yeah, the Lord's caliber. So so I had to get it just mostly because of that, and Colombians aren't too common. So that's another country I didn't
slowly
know.
collecting all of the obscure South American Mausers.
Slowly, but surely, we'll see. But those are I didn't get them. They're not but I bought them. They're just waiting for me to go do the paperwork. But,
What Danny really wants is a 7mm Vaquero from Brazil.
what I would really
Or
like,
was that Brazil, or I think it was Brazil.
I want a Mexican Mauser next. I want the Mexican 1933, which is really, really cool. It looks like a kind of has like a Springfield 1903 like cocking knob on the back of it. It's just like this weird looking like Mauser with these weird features. That's just like I like that thing. Or even more so, a Mexican Arasaka and 7mm Mauser. Oof, yeah, that'd be really cool. So anywho,
one of those two.
that's all my. Those are like I kind of always look for them. There's like I saw just a receiver of a Mexican Arasaka. That's like you just say that you can just say like I saw a Mexican Arasaka. People are like what? What are you talking about? But they're pretty cool. I kind of like stuff like that. Cool. Okay, you want to hop into this old topic now, Mike? I like your first point here, the introduction, and sort of kind of why we're going over this, which I thought it summed it up pretty good.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So obviously, we're going to talk about guns, finance, because guns and money are tied together. Because oftentimes, what's the first thing you talk about when you talk about like a gun? Is like I got a good deal, I paid XYZ for it. So it's like guns and finances are pretty tied together. Me personally, I find this really interesting. I feel like Jared kind of might be in the same boat as me, where like I think we look at a lot of this as kind of like investments. I think they're a pretty good like hedge against inflation. You know, depending on what school of thought you look at, like investments from. I think they're pretty neat to have. I think it's better than just having cash sitting around getting eaten up by the invisible tax. But yeah, I can kind of let you go through these points, Michael, because you came up with this if you want.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I don't know if I really have a reason why I'm interested in guns and money or personal finance generally. It's just, I think it's really a sad or tragic concept to look at the kind of old collectors that you see at gun shows that are selling off their collection. And then you get to talking to them, and it's just, it's very apparent, and sometimes they'll be explicit about it, where it's like, hey, this, I had a note later in the kind of outline. I had one guy that was trying to sell me a couple guns, and I got a good deal from him, and then others were just like very overpriced. But he started talking, and he was like, this collection is my 401k. And to me, I was just like, oh, wow. Okay. You know what I mean? Like it's an interesting, and we've got a discussion question about guns as investments later that we can kind of talk through. But my thought is on guns as a 401k, right? Like when you're getting towards the end of your life, and this, this collector wasn't like at death's door or anything, but he was selling off his collection. If that's your 401k and that's all you've got, it's such a non-liquid asset, and you have to give it up in order to actually, access the money. To me, it was just like, okay, what did you do before this moment to set yourself up for success? And so really that concept of like, hey, this is a really fun, incredibly interesting hobby, but at the end of the day, for most of us, it's just that, it's a hobby. It's not our business. It's not what puts food on your table. And so having the fundamentals down solid allows you to continue to enjoy your hobby when you otherwise might not be able to if you don't have those fundamentals down. I think you see on gun boards all the time really unfortunate scenarios where somebody talks about, hey, I'm going through a medical issue and I need to sell off part of my collection. And, I think kind of a bigger piece about all of our discussion tonight is just the like tough times happen, and I want to give folks grace for that, right? Like nobody expects to get cancer and needs to come up with $100,000 to pay for the treatment that you think is going to save your life. And so you can't plan for those type of things. But I think you can plan for, just generally the unexpected, right? You can have an emergency fund. You can not get into a bunch of debt. You can, set yourself up for success as you go along. And I think guns and money, if you're going to be interested in guns, Danny, kind of like what you said, just by necessity, you don't want to get, taken advantage of. And so you want to know how much your money can go for to get an object. And so just setting yourself up for success before you're, needing to sell off your favorite pieces in your collection because you just need money to pay for XYZ. Said disclaimer earlier. Oh, go ahead, man.
If you wouldn't mind me just saying real quick about the 401k aspect of it. It's interesting because I know two guys who one of them, I don't know if he ever had one to begin with, but he has a huge collection of it. I don't want to get too I don't want to call him out or whatever. So I don't say what gun it is because he's he's known in that world, but he's like the guy of this one specific nationality of Milsurp. He's got probably the best collection maybe in the United States. And he said that he personally does that as a 401k instead of his 401k because he tracks it just like a 401k and tracks the appreciation. And to him, he's seen a better return than he thinks he would have from most 401ks. And this is just what he said. This is not financial advice or anything. But he said that he does that. And he said that because he's so well known that he has people that have sort of standing offers on his collection. So at any moment, if he wanted or needed to sell, he could just liquidate it. And I know another guy who he did have a 401k. And he was not happy with the returns that he was getting, I guess. And so he just cashed it out and dumped it all into Milsurps. So he went kind of wild and he bought tens of thousands of dollars of Milsurps with his 401k money. And I think he was pretty smart about it. I think he bought stuff that was more collectible stuff that kind of goes up a little bit better than others. Because not all Milsurp's the same. Not all of it goes up. I think German stuff is kind of notorious for kind of shooting up and stuff like that. But there's a lot of And what's that, Aaron?
M95s are not my retirement fund.
yeah, I know. If you have a job that matches a 401k contribution, I think you have to do that sort of thing.
That's what I do. I do the matched amount and then I stop. I don't.
That's free money. You gotta.
Why not?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think.
But that's looking at it. They're looking at it as its thing. They're not like, oh, I'm just investing this and I'm never going to sell it and it's whatever. That's a little bit of a different mentality. I would say that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah,
I agree. And I think kind of generally, right, the personal finance counts. For me, I know that I like the objects too much to sell them. I dislike selling stuff. And so I would not want to do that. But again, right, personal finance. And so, yeah, it's interesting. And so I think even that discussion point, and I think we'll talk here in a little bit about guns as investments and what you should be thinking about if you do so, and if you don't, why not, etc. But Danny, you said for a second there, hey, this isn't financial advice. And so another kind of disclaimer from me, right? I'm not an expert. This is not any type of professional financial advice at all, right? You go to an expert to double check what I'm saying, read the experts, get if you choose, get a financial advisor, etc.
We're just dudes
but I think the most
about this.
Yeah. Yep. No one comes to us for information that's reliable.
Yeah,
Yep.
This is just sort of our personal.
But I do think. Yeah, but I think the most important thing, though, that you can kind of take away from this, particularly if you're young, and that's I think the my purpose in kind of pitching this as an idea for the podcast is that, all of us are in our, mid 30s or younger 30s, and a lot of collectors these days, particularly those that are on YouTube and creating content, etc., are younger. And so the most important takeaway from this is, taking personal responsibility of your personal finances and getting yourself and those you love ready for the future. And so I hope that you take away from this podcast some things that make you excited to learn more about, and just to, stop making excuses and actually do it. Personal finance, I would say, is probably 80 to 90% habit and 10% knowledge. You can hear these things over and over and over again, but if you don't actually do them, if you don't carve out some time to learn about it and actually execute the plan, you're just going to be one of the sad people later in life that didn't set yourself up for success. I think another kind of caveat on all of this is that it's totally scalable to whatever level of income you have. So, right, obviously, the more money you make, the bigger your shovel is. If you get into a hole, you can dig yourself out faster. But it's all scalable, right? If you make $20,000 a year, you can still enact some of these things so that you're going to be better off than if you just wash your hands of it and say, hey, I don't make enough money to do XYZ. Well, you're never going to, quote unquote, make enough money to save for the future if you don't plan on it. And just starting really, really small and then ramping things up as you go along is important. So I think another kind of concept that we'll talk a little bit about too is contentment and collecting. Right? Everybody gets a big dopamine hit. Yeah, right? Yeah, right. It's a hard concept of just like being content with your collection, but also wanting the next piece because you saw a video on Sea and Arsenal about it, and it's just like, oh wow, that's a really cool piece of history that I could own. But also it costs money to do so, and also you just bought another gun, right? Like it's like my 3 new pieces. I got them all within, a week of each other, and if you do that over and over and over again, I think you'll just not be as happy generally. And also, like, you won't get financially as ahead as you might otherwise if you're being more intentional with purchases and actually enjoying the history and reading books about it and learning more, rather than just like, oh, I need the next hot thing, so let me do that real quick.
Yeah.
So I would say that this kind of spiel tonight is the like tough love that everybody needs to hear from their their family members or their friends that are just like, they grab you by the shoulders and like, hey, you need to do this, otherwise you're going to hate yourself in 50 years when you're trying to retire on peanuts and you're selling, not Danny, not the exception to the rule, those 2 guys that you talked about, but just like you got to the end of your retirement or your working years, and your only assets are your 50 Milsurps that you've got, and now you're selling them one by one at exorbitant prices because you need to eke out as many pennies out of them as possible.
Yeah, I've bought a lot of guns from a lot of people like that over the years, kind of selling personal collections, getting old in age, not needing it anymore, selling it. Probably like one of the more like sad things, I think, is the like buying it from like the widow, or like the collector passes away and the whole estate kind of goes somewhere. Because I've bought guns that were really good deals from estates like that. Like the collector passes away, nobody has any clue. His wife doesn't know. Whoever got him doesn't know, and then they go for really good deals, and like me as a buyer, like I'm going to pay what the price tag says. I'm not going to offer, twice what the price tag says or whatever. But like to, the widow or whoever that was going to get that money, it's kind of a little sad, because like that is an investment, and they probably could have gotten a lot more for that. So just to sort of, I guess, tie into this, I think documenting your stuff is pretty important. I made a video on it. I forgot what the title is, but something about like Excel spreadsheet or something like that, gun spreadsheet or whatever, where I just show how I log mine, and I give like a copy you can download of the spreadsheet that I use, and you could keep track of everything. And that's what I do. I keep track just in case I die in a car wreck or drop dead or whatever. Like I keep the values of all of my stuff, and I try to keep them updated as stuff goes up. For my wife, and I don't price them too high, like their value, because I don't want them to like not sell ever. But I don't want my wife to kind of get screwed out of the money. But
Don't you worry, buddy. I'll be the first person that Sam talks to.
well, what I told her is because like local here, I was like, if anything happens to me, get in contact with Joel, because Joel, because he's got an FFL. He'll haul all these over. He'll sell them all or whatever. So
I do the same thing.
Danny, there's only one that I want. I want your Johnson. I had to say it.
No, you really want my PP.
Yeah.
No.
I do the same thing. I actually write mine down in a book, and I write down. I don't write down what it's worth. I write down what I paid. At least get what I paid out of it is how I did it.
So I do both. I do what I paid,
yep,
and because I want to keep track of appreciation, so I write down like what I paid, and I have another sheet in it where I like track like values over time. So I have like dates and what approximately it's worth or whatever, and then you can input that into various graphs. It's all built into Excel, and it could show you like how fast your gun investments are growing. Here's a funny thing. I call them my wood and steel investments. These are my wood and steel investments. And dude, I mean, there's stuff that I bought like when my wife and I first got together almost 10 years ago, and I'm like, we did good. We like doubled our money in that one, tripled our money in that one, because like some rather odd stuff and niche German stuff like really has really gone up lately. And I don't know if I'm going to be the devil's advocate here or whatever, but there are certain benefits, I think, to Milsurps versus like a traditional, 401k that kind of relies on the market. Because there's one point, and I know a guy who needs to retire, but when the market dips, he's not going to like cash out his 401k or anything. Like he's not going to take his money out to retire because the market's too low. He's going to stay in and work like so many more years until his money recovers to a certain point where he can retire. Where Milsurps just sort of like some guns dip a little bit, like it's not just a perfectly straight line upwards, but for the most part, Milsurps go up and up and up, and 401ks with everything, it's an upward trend, but there's some peaks and valleys kind of on the way up. So I think that is one maybe sort of benefit of Milsurp. But
no, we lost Jared.
I'm guessing he has to pee or something, stepping away. But that's sort of just one little thing that I haven't heard too many people mention about when it comes to 401ks. Like I said, you should have one, especially if your company matches. I think that's that's free money. But there are pros to as I call them, wood and steel investments.
So yeah, I think let's just kind of hit the things that I don't necessarily think we need to talk too much about, because again, my kind of point on this is that like these are the goals that everybody listening should be trying to hit, and me saying them is not going to make you hit them. And so, right, personal responsibility here, getting curious about it, going out and actually learning more and not listening to me because I'm not an expert. But I've read a lot about the experts. I've seen loved ones kind of screw this up and really hurt future generations in it. And so this is something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm just going to hit some of these things, and the last thing I want is this podcast to be boring. So I think we owe it to ourselves to mention these as goals, but like I said, we don't need to belabor the point here. So we've talked about a few of these already. I mean, we sure could.
I mean, we belabor a lot of points, a lot of dumb points, though.
The first thing is that you want to sink all of your money into farming and livestock, specifically mules, because I hear that they have the biggest kick, and you can get the biggest kick for your bucks.
I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming.
That was
I
good.
didn't see it coming.
That was good.
Yeah. I'm a big
I
mule
didn't- I
man
was like,
myself.
what the hell is he talking about? I didn't see it coming.
Slow clap.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming.
That
I've been
was a
waiting
little-
years to do that.
Just like
Right.
most people when they
Ah.
shoot their M95 for the first time, they didn't see it coming.
Oh,
Wow.
damn.
Mm.
It's right when they chamber it around.
Yeah,
Or
they
Poor Aaron.
just push the bolt
literally
forward.
every guest on the podcast.
You know, it's my fault. I'm the one that is continuing to buy the guns. It's not like I.
You're like
I
a
could
crack
stop it.
addict. Like, I don't want to stop. I just want more crack.
I'm not upset. I'm like, you see me mad? I'm
Like,
not
look at the
mad.
crackhead. I just need more crack. Like,
And
So-
RTI is the dealer. It's got the supply.
Right. Roll the dice.
Dude, you should take a trip there, man. If you ever
It's
make
in
your way
Florida.
to Florida,
I'm not going to Florida.
there's things
Yeah,
in
who would
Florida
wanna
to
ever go
do.
there?
So okay, this is what you do, Aaron. You plan a trip, a family vacation to Florida that happens to be close to RTI. Say, hey babe, we have this
It's
one
in
day.
Miami.
Yeah, there's stuff to do in Miami. That's
Miami.
totally a family friendly town.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you just say, babe, we just happen to have this free day. Do you mind if I go to this place while we're here? It's just
It's
too good.
the one thing I want to do.
It's the one thing I would just love to do. Especially after yesterday, when I made the whole day about you. Would you mind if I go to RTI today?
Who is it on our Discord that goes there?
Crap, I forgot his
The
real name.
Carcano guy.
Frantic.
Yeah.
That's Frantic. It's the Vitterly guy.
Yeah.
You're better than I. Frantical Mond.
He was very into them. And it was
Yeah, I
cool.
know.
Yes.
I
Just
sent
like
him-
I'm into M95s.
I love making memes about 6.5 Betterleys. For some reason, I typically always send them to him, or if I hear stuff, I love to tag them in it. But yeah, that's cool. That's the good thing about super narrowing, focusing into one little niche. I think it's really cool. I can't do it. I try. I can't.
That's not an investment idea. That's not doing that to get a return.
It can be.
What I'm doing. But what I'm doing is this is not something that I'm engaging in with the idea that I can sell these as assets. That would be an emergency situation. This is not a plan long term that these are going to appreciate, because for one, they're not. They haven't. I mean, from when I first started buying Milsurps in 2011 to now, which is 12 years now. Wow, that's weird to say that out loud. They've not appreciated hardly at all. I bought my first M95 for $299. I can still buy M95s from RTI for $199. So, if anything, they've gone down in value.
Yeah, because the value of $1. Yeah.
You made a bad investment.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's why I said
honestly,
there's caveats
they're really
to certain Milsurps.
But the problem is you don't know what's going to appreciate so quickly. Who would have guessed that K98Ks would be 1.5K? On average.
For a bolt mismatch nowadays.
Yeah.
That's not even a good one. That's
Good
Labelle.
adjacent.
Or
Next.
labels.
all the labels.
Oh, yeah,
the labels were
labels,
worthless.
yeah,
Labels were worthless.
yeah, you can ask
was a
anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been into French stuff longer than 10 years, they'll all be like, "Oh yeah, nobody cared about these, 10, 20 years ago. Nobody wanted them, but now they are hot."
Berthier's, labels. I didn't even know the Berthier's existed. That's how obscure they were.
Yeah, I just didn't know a lot of stuff existed, years ago, right? It's just there was only German and American surplus. That's the only guns that existed, right?
But even then, even American surplus, the M1917.
Oh yeah.
all of a sudden
Yeah.
that's suddenly worth a lot more money.
Yeah,
Those
are
were
expensive
not
now.
those were not valued at the same level as the 1903.
I bought mine for $600, and yeah, it was 1903s worth $1,000. They're still $1,000
I think I got
now. They're all,
I got mine for, I think it was like 400 and something bucks. About
Yeah.
8 years ago, something like that.
The 1917s have exploded in value. I don't know if that's as a result of just World War One
The Centennial, maybe.
media.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's a little bit of
media.
both. I think they're getting more recognized now as being really good. A lot of people think the 1917 is the best, like bolt action Milsurp, which it does have some good characteristics, but then
I do like mine.
it's just, yeah, it's got some downsides, which I think a lot of people kind of ignore. But
It's the big chunky guy.
It's so heavy.
It is
big,
heavy.
chunky,
The big-
heavy,
So heavy.
Big
thick,
big chungus.
with 2 C's. Yeah.
It was on my top.
Damn.
When I did the video with you, it was on my top.
Oh,
3
yeah.
Milsurps.
Oh, yeah,
World War
yeah.
One.
Yeah,
That's funny.
It's heavy, but this sumbitch shoots. Like,
Yeah. Oh, here's
talking
one.
about great deals. And,
Oh, sorry. They made, real quick, they
Talk-
made
sorry,
a
man.
1917 carbine. There's like,
yeah, the Chinese one, right? Or
uh,
the one that they
no,
used. in
there's an
China?
American one. This is just what I heard. Okay, I'll caveat this. That it's just what I heard. I recently saw a collector who had a 1917 carbine, and he's like, "This is a legit one." There's like 5 of them in the United States. I have one. Ian has one, and he knows Ian has one because he was gonna sell one of his to Ian or something like that. So apparently that's a thing. 1917 carbine. They look pretty cool because I think
Pretty
the
cool.
like
Yeah.
they're longer. Like guns look weird. Like you could look at a 1917, it doesn't look that long because it's so thick. Like the length doesn't
they're
really
long.
show. They are long. They're too long. So I mean,
it's a World War
Yeah,
One
the
era
bayonet,
gun.
right?
oh yeah, I had a bayonet to that.
It's a
son of
World
a
War
bitch,
One
and-
era gun,
yeah.
so obviously, like it's gonna be big. Have you ever shot your Honduran one, Danny?
Fucking well, technically yes. I fucking tried like 3 times, man. I went out with Milsurp Mike, and I shot so many different types of surplus 7mm Mauser ammo that I had in my collection. And so I'd bring like a box from this type, from this country, at this time period, whatever, and I would try to shoot it all. And I got a couple hang fires. So like I've shot it twice because I only like 2 rounds of the ammo. So I'm just gonna shoot like commercial through it or something next time I go out because it's been really hit or miss trying to get. I thought my 7mm Mauser was better.
I'll share this for you guys so you can see. This is a post on TFB from Othias, and that is the carbine.
I have to click watch
Go
stream on
the
here.
screen. Yeah, you have to click watch stream.
Yeah.
would argue that's a short
Oh, that's
rifle.
yeah, it's funny.
They
the
they
length is
designated
not
it a
that
carbine.
great.
That's why he called it a carbine.
Gotcha.
That's
I
like
feel like
I,
I'm thinking.
that's like 24-ish inches. Looks like.
That's why I would argue it's a short
It
rifle.
says,
Yeah.
what does it
I
say?
just shot my 1917 for the first time a couple of weeks ago. It was good. It was fun.
Yeah.
41
it was
total
so
inches.
heavy. And that was really the only drawback. But
Yeah, they're good
speaking of
shooters.
Washington, good deal.
Yeah, because they got.
I got mine for.
Go ahead.
Sorry, man. I was going to say, speaking of Washington, good deals. When I first started getting into Milsurp, I saw the 1917, and I love the way they look. But then I found out how much the price was, and it's like, yeah, these usually go for like $900 to $1,200. And it's like, okay, I'm never going to get one. And then at a gun show in Washington, I found an Eddystone for $520. And this was in March of 22. So you just got to get lucky sometimes.
Dude, those shows in Washington. Boy.
I don't know about yours, but if you flip the sight up, so if you have it in battle sight, it's like 150 to 200. If you flip the sight up, it's actually 100 yard zero.
Oh, no way.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I think I'm trying to remember what I shot it at. I think it was like 100 yards. So
So we
that would have
do.
been helpful.
They do this competition. It's not. Oh, it's a like kind of a chance thing. You pay $5 for 2 rounds, and you shoot offhand, no rest, standing at 100 yards, or it's like 90 yards, and you shoot at eggs. And I've shot
man.
eggs with mine, standing, just boom, and I've hit them. I think I've got 3 or a ham and a turkey with it. Like they're accurate guns. I like them.
I think they're really good stationary guns. They're really good when you're sitting at a bench, or maybe just standing, and you're going to fire, 5 or 6 rounds and then put it down. They're good for that.
Yep.
Like another gun we've talked about, Danny.
The boring one.
Talked about a lot of guns.
The boring one.
I'm going to bring us back.
All right, bring us back to the actual topic of conversation.
Bring us back to the topic. So again, right, all of these things, you just, if you Google, like, what should I do about personal finance? You're going to find some variation on this. So none of this is new. And I think it's just critical for collectors, and particularly young collectors, to get a handle on. So take this as take this again. It's just like, hey man, your future self will thank you very much if you do these things. So first off is, the key to being successful is not always being in debt, and or at least bad debt. And so if you're constantly, like, your car's breaking down and you have to sell your next Milsurp in order to drive to your work, you're not gonna get a good collection. And so having an emergency fund is going to be critical. So I think you talk to different people about how much of an emergency fund you should have, because the key here is you want it to be accessible. So you want it in cash. You don't want it in some investment that you're going to take several days to get access to, and you might pull it out of the market at the wrong time, et cetera, et cetera. So some people say have $1,000 as kind of a starter emergency fund that'll cover a lot of just everyday type emergencies. But then the goal should be something like 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So that's, your rent, your mortgage, groceries, et cetera, et cetera. So like if you lost your job, having no income for 6 months and just living off of that would be kind of the goal. So next is, it's always important to be working towards paying off debt. And particularly if it's high interest debt, you should be paying that off as fast as possible on non-essential things. Because really high interest debt is literally throwing away money at interest. I use credit cards, but I have never paid a single penny in interest on credit cards because I pay them off before the end of the month. That way I get all the benefits of credit cards, like, mileage and deals and access to lounges and all that good stuff. But I'm not paying the interest on things that I, purchased when I didn't actually have the money.
I want a nice little tip on that, just so you know. If you don't pay the card off, you leave $5 on it, and you buy something else, that actually will increase your credit score rapidly versus paying it off all the way. That actually will not do as good because you're not leaving money out there for them to check your credit on. So I would not suggest you pay off your card. I would suggest you leave, like, what's 17% interest on $5 is nothing, right? Leave $5 on it and buy something else.
Here's another.
You mean like month to month?
Yeah. So let's say you put gas on it to go to work, right? And gas is $100 a month. Pay $95, and then you'll get $5 to roll over, and then you put another $100 on it to go to work, and you pay that $100, and you still have $5 on it. You'll actually increase your credit score substantially. It's ridiculous, and don't go over a third. So if you have $1,000 limit, don't spend more than $333. If you do, roll it down. Neat little fun facts. Yep, just fun, interesting facts for the people that that work.
I don't know if I'd say with that fun fact.
I thought it was a fun fact.
Kind of sad how
I had a lot of hand motion.
The modern technology and all the bullshit is, but anyway.
The perfect credit score is 0.
Oh, and if you charge on credit cards, don't go above 30% of the limit.
That's what I said.
You just said.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was reading.
You're not listening.
You were that bored by my fun fact.
No, sorry. I was
Um,
reading. My wife knows I'm very bad at multitasking.
and so right, you got credit cards, but you've got other kinds of debt as well, right? You got car loans. So don't buy a bigger car than you need type deal. That again, I don't want to go into too much into the weeds, but everybody should be working towards paying off their debt. Um, there's some debate about good debt versus bad debt, particularly in regards to student loans and mortgages. I said that I'm a lawyer, and I went to law school with a particular goal of joining the Navy JAG Corps, and so I wanted a school that would have low debt, and it worked out great for me. But I have a lot of colleagues who are doing the literal exact same job as me and have student debt in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. It's just nuts, right? So I think the key is just being incredibly intentional when you take on debt, like student loans, about what your plan is to pay for it afterwards. Because if you do something that isn't going to be worthwhile, you're going to get stuck. And then again, all of this kind of ties back to you can't get the newest, hottest Milsurp if all your money is going to your student loan payment every month. And then mortgage, right? Again, there's all kinds of nuance to all of this, and some people, some financial thinkers are like, hey, any mortgage is a bad debt, and other people are like, hey, I'm paying 2.1% interest on this chunk of money, and instead I can invest way more into the stock market and get 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 type percent interest. So, but the key is overall, you want to be paying off your debt and moving towards not having any debt in order to just maximize your potential. So, another one, speaking of the devil, is probably the biggest, one of the biggest portions of this is investing for retirement. And I got a whole section, and we've already talked about, but a whole section on firearms as investments. But regardless of what you invest, and again, this is the personal and personal finance. I would say for me, I have found that index funds are the best. So they're essentially computer generated collections of stocks that you invest in, and so you're diversified by investing in a whole bunch of different stocks in the index fund. Again, the kind of jargon and nuance, I think we could get way off field here. And so I don't necessarily want to do it too much. But the nice thing about index funds as compared to paying for a financial advisor is that index funds are much more likely statistically to match the market because they're based on the market itself. You're not trying to hire some latest, greatest person who can pick better than the market because the market is tied to the index fund. Absolutely, the thing we talked about earlier, employer matching of your 401k, it's free money. You would be foolish to not accept a raise every year by matching that money, right? If your employer does a 5% match, that's great. Just put in 5%, and then that's a start. But the goal should be for everybody, I would say, and you get different thoughts on this, but 15 to 25% of your pre-tax income should be going towards retirement. I would say 25% is aggressive, but a lot of jobs anymore don't have pensions. And I think there can be a risk of relying on other people to pay for your pension. So personal finance, it's all personal. Anecdotally, my dad was a pilot for United before he passed away, and 9/11 hit, and he was all set for success. He was going to get his pension, everything was going to be good, and then a terrorist attack happened, and it changed the whole world and the future of the world. And part of that fallout was United going bankrupt and just canceling everybody's pensions. So it definitely changed the game as far as what the retirement plan was, because his retirement plan just got swept out from under him. And so I think being self-reliant on yourself and not on anybody else's pension plan is important. So right, my job, if I stay till retirement in the Navy, has a great retirement plan, but I'm not planning on that because of any number of things, right? People can, you get out of the Navy or you change jobs or whatever. And so relying on yourself and investing for retirement at something up to 25% of your income is the goal. And 25% sounds like a crazy number, I think, to a lot of people. And I think that's the key here, is that starting small, starting at 2%, which is what your match is. And then, okay, next year I'm going to do 3% or 4%. The best time to start investing for retirement is yesterday. And the next best time is today. So again, this is a little bit dorky, but it's super important, because if nothing else, you want to be able to not have to sell your Milsurps when you run out of money. You want to be able to hold on to them, unless, again, kind of Danny, your anecdotes that you talked about are super interesting, like people actually using their firearms as a 401k. I think that's got some of its own inherent risks to it that we can talk about here in a bit, about firearms as investments. One last note too is that investing for retirement should be boring. It's not the TikTok of people wearing, fancy clothes and driving Ferraris and, hey, buy my course for $500 and then you can be a day trader like me. Those people are preying on you to buy their $500 course. Investing should be boring. You set it, you look at it maybe once a quarter, rebalance things as you see fit to your risk level, and then just go about your business. Always be buying, even when the market's down, because it's like Milsurps, right? If you get a good deal and it appreciates and goes up later, then you can sell it for more. So that's kind of retirement investing. Next, charitable giving. Obviously, some religions have, or most religions have, a amount of charitable giving that's important. And so, if you're religious, do that, or do that partially. If you're not, just be a good citizen, help your neighbors. Everybody, a rising tide lifts all the boats. So help out your neighbors. Try to give something like 10%. And again, that's a lofty goal too. So start small and just ratchet it up year by year. Next, wills and trusts. So I said earlier, I'm a lawyer. This is not personal legal advice. Get a lawyer. This is advice for you, but it's not legal advice. You need a will. Every person needs a will. That's a thought that is debatable, right? So a lot of assets will automatically go to your the person that you list as your beneficiary, right? Most checking accounts, most savings accounts, 401ks, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, I would say that everybody needs a will. Costs just a couple $100. You get your assets all set up. If you have kids, you absolutely need a will, because if nothing else, you can establish who you want to raise your kids and where that money is coming from, and who's going to get your guns, right? Like that's a thing that I think every gun owner is probably passionate about, is not having a widow or their best buddy or whatever say like, hey, this Mosin is let's go into the garbage heap, instead of going somewhere or getting turned into the police as a trade-in or something like that, without having some of their best friends have chance to inherit guns or otherwise kind of pass on that history and that legacy that got you excited about the firearm in the first place. So there's all of that. And then I think one key takeaway that ties into Danny, your comment about your video about the spreadsheet, which I will absolutely foot stomp, is being organized. And I think part of that is things like wills and trusts, and ensuring that today, when you actually have a voice and you're not on a respirator and medically unable to make your wishes known, getting organized now and knowing what you're doing in your personal life is going to better protect the ones that you love and prevent them from having to make really difficult emotional decisions later, because you've already established what you want. And so part of that, I would say, and this is probably the best actionable piece of advice from this podcast, is to make a flop, a financial life on one page. So if you take nothing else, make a flop. So what a flop is, hey, if you get hit by a bus, your loved one or your executor to your will or whoever is going to handle all of your stuff pulls open this flop and it's your entire life on one page. So it sums up your net worth, all the subcomponents of that. It talks about all your debts that you owe, that your estate's going to have to pay off. It has all of your information on logins, right, on your Facebook. So you can turn off your Facebook account or make it a legacy account, or log into the utilities to pay for the the house that you're now living in, that your people are living in, that you've passed away. So keep it offline. Obviously, like collecting everything, right? Your bank accounts, your credit cards, everything into one document. You definitely don't want it living online. My advice, anyway. Maybe you're comfortable with that,
right? That should be in the cloud.
Yeah,
I can post that on Facebook, right? That's the cloud.
Yeah, probably. It's probably good.
Right.
So for me, I keep mine offline, and I keep redundant copies so that if my house burns down, for instance, then I'm not going to lose all of that work that I put into making this flop. But this, kind of getting again into personal or anecdotal, this became really important to me when my dad passed away. So my dad died of cancer, and I was very, very lucky enough to be able to be with him for the last couple months teleworking. And we had a conversation once, as he was still a few weeks off from passing away, but he sat down and my sister sat next to him with a notebook and a pen. And my dad was a pilot and an engineer and just like a super brilliant person. And he literally just rattled off the passwords and the user IDs for every utility company and every bank account and his 401k and his health insurance and no joke, probably 50 different permutations on like very slightly different passwords. You know what I mean? Like everybody does that where they just like change a couple numbers here, every single one. And he just rattled those off. If my dad would have died before that, we would have been so screwed, like unbelievably screwed. And so it really got me into gear to think, hey, if I die, my wife is going to have to do all of this that I had to do, and it sucked. But at least it was wildly organized because I had that conversation with my dad. And so what I wanted is to make sure that nobody ever has to be in that position in my household of making sure that I live long enough to sit down with them and write it out. And thank goodness my dad was that smart and had the chance to do it, because otherwise it would have been extremely difficult. So do yourself and your loved ones a favor by making a flop, or if it's not this tool, it's something that you do to become organized, and get it together. So again, I'm a little bit on a soapbox, but I think this is the kind of life advice that not everybody talks about, and it takes work to actually get organized and put your guns in a spreadsheet. But once you have that spreadsheet, once you've actually done the work, you feel better, because my wife, who literally can't, I love her to death, but she can't identify a single firearm different than a different one. It's like, that's a Mosin. It's like, well, actually, babe, that's a Vetterli, but you got not anywhere close. And
she got the name.
So,
my wife couldn't even do that. And it's not because she's not intelligent; she just doesn't have any interest in it. So,
and there's that. I think we'll talk here in a minute about a different concept, which is like, I live in fear that my spouse is going to sell my guns for what I told her I paid for them.
Oh yeah,
type deal. That
boomer meme.
I hate that joke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hate that joke, and we'll talk about it here in a second. But don't let that be your reality. Have a spreadsheet, and that way she can go through and match the guns by serials, because she won't know physically what they look like.
Yeah, serials is.
And so do it once. If you want to be even more organized, take a picture. That's what I do. Is that I have a picture of the gun, and so again, they all kind of look alike to her, but right, this one has a bayonet attached to it, and this one doesn't, but it's longer, right? So it at least gets her in the ballpark, and then the serial numbers will actually get her all the way through. So a flop is wildly important, regardless of if you collect guns. I think every person should have a flop. Every person should have a will, and it's a good thing to have. So with that, kind of, again, those are just general things that a person should be aware about. for some resources that you should start looking into, I think a person should read a lot of different financial advice from all different thinkers to figure out what works for you. Because some people will have different perspectives. Danny and I had a conversation earlier today, and he asked if I like Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is a kind of polarizing figure who is well known for his ability to help people work through paying off debt. Dave Ramsey is, I think, really cool, and also has limitations. So, you know, the Dave Ramsey advice is incredible for folks that have found themselves stuck in debt. And also, I think, you know, no offense to him, and I think he's wildly smart and has way more money than I ever will. So it worked for him. But I would say that his investing advice is not something that I personally agree with. And, you know, things like paying off your mortgage as fast as possible, I would say statistically is a good way to shoot yourself in the foot on investing for retirement when you have a low, a low interest mortgage rate. But so Dave Ramsey is somebody to listen to. My favorite financial advisors or folks that give out advice are Brian Preston and Bo Hansen. They have a YouTube show called The Money Guy. Brian is in his, I think, upper 40s, maybe early 50s, and Bo is in his mid 30s. So they've got a good perspective on a lot of things, and their advice fits well with what I want my financial life to look like, where it's just, again, it's boring. You contribute 25% of your pay every paycheck, and you just let it sit there, and you check in, and you rebalance every once in a while. And you don't shy away from spending money on things that are going to make your life better or give you more time, you know, things like that. So they're good. Jeff Bogle and Bogleheads. So Jeff Bogle is kind of the godfather of and the inventor of the index fund. So check him out if you're interested in kind of very passive, using algorithms rather than picking out some hotshot financial advisor to make you money. Susie Orman, the money book for the young, fabulous, and broke. I read this book in law school and realized that like my life wasn't very financially organized, and I needed to, you know, kind of make some changes and think about what we wanted to do after we started earning some income. Beth Kobleiner's Get a Financial Life. That's a really good one. Brett McKay, The Art of Manliness. If you haven't read The Art of Manliness, it's awesome, and it's not just about finances. He's got all kinds of cool things about just, I don't know, all types of different.
I first discovered
he's
him.
got like pipe smoking.
Yeah. I think I first discovered him because he had a really good article about the importance of roughhousing with kids, and specifically like a father's role in that, because dads tend to be the ones that roughhouse with their kids. And I keep hearing more and more about that, how that's like super like mentally beneficial for kids to, you know, to roughhouse with them and play with them and throw them around and all that sort of stuff. So
my dad knocked out one of my teeth when I was a kid, and then was that a permanent one? I was like, I don't know. So I had like a missing tooth for like 3 years, and my mom didn't know about it. Tell your mother.
Yeah,
it wasn't. It was a baby tooth.
Yeah. My son chipped a tooth, and it's a baby tooth, so we're like, oh well, thank goodness it's not a permanent one. But took him to the dentist, and they were like, yeah, it's pretty common.
Yeah, he knocked one clean out of my head.
Gosh, it's crazy. I love Brett McKay. His website is just a great place to just lose yourself for a long time. Read an article recently about how important it is to take a bath as compared to a shower. And it talked about like, hey, after warriors in the Iliad and the Odyssey, they returned from slaughtering everybody on the battlefields of Troy. You take a Homeric bath to recenter yourself and figure out what you're doing next. Just like odd stuff, right? Like it's not just all financial, all over the place, but all really interesting. But he's got some really good articles on just like the fundamentals, like, hey, how do I make an emergency fund? I can't rub two pennies together. How do I get there? And yeah, great starter point. And then lastly is Trent Ham from The Simple Dollar. talks a lot about kind of frugality and contentment and how to make your budget stretch. So those are just kind of good resources to. Those are the experts. I'm not an expert. I'm passionate about this topic. And so next, I think, what do you guys think? Should we shift to your spouses and money? I think that's an interesting topic. Dan,
Yeah.
you talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. I
Your,
talked to my wife about this, and she was like, "You're not going to talk bad about me, are you?" The spouse part. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
There's.
I think that's important. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
man.
Go ahead. No,
I'll just
sorry.
say-
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll just say, right, like personal finance is part of the personal piece is that it's invasive, and so nobody has to share anything that they don't want to share or talk about their own personal stuff. I'll talk about mine because I think it's let us be really happy with how we spend our money, but obviously nobody needs to share any details they don't want to. Sorry, Danny, what were you going to say?
Oh, well, yeah. The partner, your spouse or what have you, is a very interesting part of the whole personal finance part. Well, just collecting in general and how supportive they are and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know if you want to start on it first before I dive into it.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start off by saying that my wife and I married at 21. I'm 32 now, so we've been married a little bit over a decade. And when we got married, we were seniors in college. We had almost no money. We went right from college to law school, where we had my wife was a teacher, and I obviously wasn't making any money. So law school was real rough. Money wise, I literally sold plasma to get gas money. So it can, this is, and that's kind of where this concept really, again, this is kind of why I'm passionate about it, is like, hey, I came from some challenging times earlier in my young adulthood, and so this is really important for me to talk to friends about and teach kids. But anyway, so, I think your mileage varies depending on when you meet your spouse, right? If you're coming into a marriage with a super high income and they are also coming into a marriage with a super high income, or there's an imbalance or whatever, that's going to change your philosophy. But for us, we have combined finances because it's just, maybe we're more traditional, but that's what we started with, where neither of us had any money. And so it made sense. And so we rely on each other. And honestly, our possessions are each other's. And so for me, that's the way that it works for me. That's something that is pretty fundamental to my own marriage, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's better than, or you can't do something else, because everybody's different. And what works for your own marriage is what works for your marriage. And that's the key, is finding some sort of compromise that's going to work for your marriage. Because I'll say up front that I think the kind of jokes or the actual like dishonesty with your spouse about how much you're going to spend on your collecting is a real bad idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the folks who are like, I just snuck in another gun because she can't tell the difference. That's really shitty. Like, that's a shitty thing to do to a person that you love. Like, if you're going to make a decision to spend a couple $100s on an object, do it together, right? And like, if it's, hey, I don't care what money you spend so long as I can spend it on my hobby, that's great. Dave Ramsey had a thing.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was going to say, that's essentially how my wife and I handle things too. We don't have a combined finances. We have split finances. So each of us have our own bank accounts, because we were already pretty much established in careers by the time we met each other. So it was we just didn't care to combine them. It was, to be honest, a difficult thing to do, and we were just like, screw it. So she handles payments of certain bills. I handle payments of other bills out of mine, and we just kind of split it that way. But as far as like discretionary income, like, we both trust each other to not screw us as far as the family goes to pay for the bills that we're responsible for. So I don't have to necessarily go and say, hey, I mean, I'll tell her if I'm going to buy something, but I'm not going to have to I'm not going to say I'm not seeking permission and I'm not sneaking it in. So
Yep.
she trusts me to have control enough that I can pay the bills and have extra income in case we need it, and then still also purchase something like that. So I trust her the same way. So she just bought some stuff. She wanted to do some. She wanted to get a hobby, and she was looking into stamping jewelry, and so she just bought a whole thing for that. And sure, whatever, go for it. So she can do her own thing. I do my own thing, and we just it just works for us. At least it works better separately. And I understand both approaches.
I do the same thing you do.
Yeah.
Same reasons.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just, like you said, you started with nothing, so it was just easier to combine it then. And then we already had ourselves, like, I didn't meet her until my late 20s, or her late 20s, my mid 20s. So it was 2013 when we got married. So it'll be our 10-year anniversary this year.
Hey.
So yeah. But the it was just easier to just leave it separate, and then one of us pays for this, one of us pays for that, and so on and so forth. But the key thing, like you said, is the trust. Like, I trust her to be an adult and not spend a bunch of money on something that she doesn't necessarily need to, and then to have no money to pay for a bill.
Yep.
And the same goes
Yeah,
for me.
that kind of, that fundamental trust and compromise and making sure that it's clearly communicated and agreed upon, I think is awesome.
I also agree that those jokes are horrible, and I hate whenever I see, and I know people that do that, though, that do sneak stuff in, because they, I don't want to comment on somebody's relationship that I don't know necessarily everything about, but I don't think that's a healthy way of doing anything.
So
I don't think that's a good way of doing something.
Yeah. Trust is key. I don't like sneaking. I'm too excited to show my wife whatever I bought, and she's usually just like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, I don't know how that's any different than.
Yeah, my wife doesn't care. I've learned to just not bother. I'm just like, she's like, "What's that box?" "Oh, it's a gun." "Okay."
Yeah,
Mine's the other end. Mine's so excited. What did you get now? She wants to see it and mess with it. So mine's the other way. She's an enabler.
Oh no. It's a good problem.
That's almost like worse.
It kind of is sometimes. And then I'll do.
You can get that. You can get that.
And then it'll be, can I take pictures with it? Sure. So she'll like put pictures on her like whatever the hell social media she uses. I don't even know. But like she's like, oh, look at this cool picture I took with the Luger and the MG34. I'm like, oh, that's. You want a belt of ammo for that? Like you can make this cooler.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trust is important.
I think
just to touch on it, yeah, we do combine, so I guess we're kind of split 2 and 2, but we kind of started at sort of 0, so it's probably a little bit easier for us. But like, I don't have to necessarily ask for permission because she knows I'm not going to go crazy. But just between us here, don't tell anybody. I sometimes use my wife as a crutch. If there's something that like maybe somebody wants me to buy or whatever, I'm like, oh, I don't think my wife would be too happy if I brought that home. I probably do that a little more often than I should. And when I say that, I get the, oh, well, see, this is what you do. The sneaking them in kind of things. I've heard them all from all the old timers at all the gun shows. I've heard the oh yeah, well, see, what you do is you take 3 rifle cases with you, and then you just they're empty. She doesn't know if they're empty or not, so she just these 3 rifle cases coming going out and 3 coming in. I hear all the sneaking things, and I do know guys that straight up do that. But it seems those guys that I talk to, their finances, I don't really know their finances actually. Now that I think about it. A couple of them, I feel like maybe are combined, but um, yeah, I think it's the trust aspect is pretty huge when it comes to it.
Yeah, so the number one most fought about thing among spouses is money. And so uh, I think that applies to this hobby, because this hobby does take money. Even if you get great deals on stuff, you're still spending money that could otherwise go towards insert XYZ. And so, yeah, Danny, you hit it right on the head. I think trust, however you do it, trust and communication and agreement and compromise is going to be the way to succeed. So for us, we do fun money, so discretionary money. So we've got all of our goals that we're hitting, but we found that both of us would spend money on things that didn't interest the other person before we set up this fun money concept. And then the other person would feel kind of resentful, and then you would feel guilty for spending the money, right? So if I'm going to buy a video game that my wife Mandy has no interest in playing, like, all right, but I just, it feels selfish. And if she buys some sort of art or crafting thing that I have no interest in personally doing, again, it feels selfish. And then she feels guilty, like, oh man, I shouldn't buy this. But we have the money to do so, right? Like, again, this is after you've kind of met your goals. And again, all of this is scalable, right? If you're making $20,000, you should be able to do this. You might only get $15 a month on fun money. And frankly, buying a Milsurp might take you many months to do it, and that's not necessarily a workable hobby. Or the flip side, you might make $200,000, and this is the way to do it. So for us, we each do a few $100s every month. And for me, on my side of the house, I found that there were guns that I would run into at gun shows that I had done my research on that I knew were worth way more than they were marked, but they were still like, it was like a $700 gun, but I knew it was like $1,000 or $1,500 gun. So if you break $1,500 down by $300 a month in fun money, that means that for 5 months I am literally paying just to buy this gun. But it's only marked at $750. So we came up with this thing where I have a limit on how much money I can go into debt to the family on, in order to buy Milsurps that would otherwise be outside my price range. And then for me, it's like, okay, I can either sacrifice and spend nothing for 5 months, or I can enjoy the gun and then pass it on for its actual market value and then increase my collection and not have that money. So again, it's equal, because if Mandy wants to do the same thing, she sure can. And frankly, with the money is kind of all arbitrary, the dollar amounts are arbitrary, because again, the rest of our financial goals are met. So I can go into debt from the family on fun money purchases. But again, it's whatever works for your family. So I think that's one thing, is establishing a money amount that each person gets every month. Another thing is occasion by occasion. So you have a gun show once a month. Hey, Michael, you can go to that gun show, and once a month at a gun show, you can buy one gun or two guns. And meanwhile, Mandy can go to an antique store and buy one big antique once a month, or whatever, however you do it. You can do trade-offs. So Dave Ramsey has a clip that talks about this kind of concept of fun money, and it's about guns. And the husband is like, man, I just want to buy more guns because we have the money to do it, and there's no reason not to, but my wife kind of gets upset because she doesn't have any interest in that, but we have the money. And I think that's kind of the key point, is you have the money to do it, right? You're saving for retirement, you've paid off your debt, you're working on your mortgage, all those kind of boring steps that we talked about. Once you're lock solid on those foundational pieces, then you can kind of really start to grow your collection, because you got the basics locked down. So anyway, on this clip, Dave Ramsey says, hey, for me and my wife, whenever I buy a new gun, because Dave Ramsey's a big gun guy apparently, whenever I buy a new gun, my wife gets a luxury purse. So you do a trade, one object for one, and one object for the other. So that works. Another one is like, hey, buying a yearly limit. I've talked to people that are like, I can buy 15 guns a year, or I can buy 12 guns a year. And so if you buy 15 guns in January, tough cookies, man. Like, I don't care if it's the best deal you ever see in your life. In February, you've already bought your limit. And I think that's the key of communication and agreement, because if you're like, oh, but I could just, please, babe, can I buy this? Like, and that's just setting everybody else up for some tension and maybe some arguments later on. So I think there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but really just kind of gets back to that fundamental communication and ensuring that your spouse is okay and happy with what you're doing. Because if you're sneaking guns into the house, or you're lying about how much you're spending on your guns, it's just going to come out and bite you, right? Like, and frankly, like, even if it doesn't, it's not right. It's not a loving thing to do to the person that you've said that you wanted to marry. So that's my take. I
have a sort of joke about, so like if you're at a show and you see like a gun for $700 that is $1,500, I always say, babe, we're losing money not buying it.
Yeah,
that's my thing. Yeah.
I think that's a good two last quick things, and then I think I'll transition off your story there, Danny. So, right, again, as a spouse, and you've got your main job and then you got your hobby. If you want to have more money for your hobby, trade some time to get more income, right? Either do Uber or DoorDash or some other side gig, mowing lawns, etc. Like,
donate
hey
plasma.
babe, can I wake up early? Yep, donating plasma, right?
That's
it
helping
works.
people.
It's not pretty.
That's directly helping people too.
Yeah. I will say it was super sketchy, right? Like,
I mean,
the
some of
place
the
that we
ones I've
went
been
to
to,
was-
yes, but some of them are
but
nice.
but it paid for gas money that we needed, So, transition, yeah. So Danny, you just said we're losing money if we leave this gun on the table. So I want to shift to kind of guns as investments. We talked a little bit about it already, but I loved the section, Danny, on your podcast when you and your wife did the marriage and guns episode, and you guys got into this great discussion about basically that of like, hey, we're losing money if we don't buy this gun. And she pointed out, well, yeah, but then we have to sell it to actually access the money. And I think that's an interesting concept that people have different perspectives on. And like, for me, I will buy a gun to enjoy it, and in the back of my head it'll be like, okay, this doesn't quite fit the collection, so I'm probably going to sell it at some point, but it's a good deal and I want to buy it and enjoy the history now and then do so. But I actually have to sell it, because I've bought other guns where it's like, oh, that's a great deal, I'm going to buy that, and then sell it, and then it ends up permanently in my collection because I just can't let go of it. And so getting access to the actual money value of these objects, because they're not liquid, it's interesting. So Danny, say some more about kind of your thoughts on that, or anyone, Jared or Ingrid.
Yeah, if you want to talk some, Jared. No, this dude.
You can tell it's getting late, and I'm on the East Coast.
Oh yeah.
No, that's fine. I'm bad because I don't sell a lot of stuff, but I look at it as a long-term investment, not a short-term investment. So, and typically but the thing too is I won't buy something unless it's a decent deal. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay over market value for your whatever. I don't care, because I can find something else to invest my money on.
Yeah.
It's just my mentality of it. Like, something else will come along.
Yeah, I don't typically, unless it's something I really want, I don't pay retail for stuff. I gotta really, really like it to pay retail or close to retail. But I think that's a big key too. A friend of mine, he once said, "You don't make money on the sell; you make money on the buy." So it's one of those things where it just has to be a really good price. And typically, like, I don't have to buy anything. And like, some people ask me like, "Hey, are you looking for anything in particular?" And I usually just say, "I'm just looking for good deals," because that's what I like. I like the hunt, And we mentioned kind of earlier about the like the dopamine hit or whatever, and like that's probably my favorite part about collecting guns is finding a really good deal. And oh my goodness, oh I can't believe I got this, whatever. Like I remember when I hit up my honey hole that one time, and I bought like 3 or 4 guns because I got my red 9 that I paid $9.99 for, and a few other guns. I just got fantastic screaming deals out of this place, and I have all these guns, back in, and I'm like, I know I had the largest dopamine hit, and I was like, I think I joked with my wife. I was like, babe, I don't need drugs. I have Milsurps, because I just felt, it's a real good sort of feeling. And so
you can get it vicariously too.
Yeah.
I've listened to that episode just to listen to that section, Danny, where you talk about like just the excitement of them laying a red 9 on the table or your Remington Rand. And it was just like, they don't realize that this is a Remington Rand. And just,
I own that.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I own that Remington Rand.
Yeah, it might have went to you. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
There's a couple ones. Yeah, that went to. I would have kept it. It was a really nice one. I would have kept it, but I have my grandfather's Remington Rand. My grandfather was in the Navy in World War II, and he brought one back for some reason, and so that was in my family and went to my dad, and then when he passed, it went to me. But so it's one of those. It's one of those things I typically don't buy unless it's a really good price. And my wife trusts me. We built up trust, and like I could tell her. One of her things, she used to say it more than she does now, but she used to say that, well, something's only worth what somebody will pay for. And that's really true too. And that's why kind of like on my spreadsheet, like I kind of undervalue stuff. I tend to undervalue it because I'd rather, stuff sell, faster than not. And typically when I sell stuff, I don't try to like get every single penny I possibly could out of it or whatever. I'm like, this is I sell for what I think is pretty fair. But it's so by making, I think because I look at it like an investment, like I never buy anything to flip. I never buy anything. I always think about mainly the channel. Could I make a video on this? Has anybody else made a video on this? How could I use this with other stuff? Could I shoot this? Whatever. So I'm always kind of thinking about stuff like that. And so there's that aspect of it, but which I guess is kind of like side gig investing or whatever. I had to do my taxes this year. We just did our taxes, and like I had a bunch of stuff from the channel all on my taxes, and I had to pay the government a lot of money for Milsurp World, like a surprising amount of money for Milsurp World. Like I was like, what? But because it's all 1099. It's all like, so no W-2 kind of tax break.
Crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, I look at it, the investment, and you make the money and figuratively with the investment on the buy. So I always buy the good deals. If something, even if I don't have any interest in it, if it's a really good deal, I'll buy it because, long-term investment sort of strategy with this. But this isn't our only sort of investment. What I told my wife is that like when we reach like 65, 70 or whatever, I'm planning on selling like 90% of this, 95% or whatever, give my kids a few, whatever their favorites are, sell the rest. And we could just kind of, we could buy an RV or something with that. And kind
don't buy an RV.
But
don't buy an RV.
Oh yeah. Only because you sell
and tow it. All right. Truck and travel trailer. Do not buy an RV. They're fucking useless.
Oh well, I mean, maybe in 40 years they'll be better. They'll all be
they won't.
They'll all be Tesla electric.
You know the difference between $100,000 RV and $1 million RV?
They'll all be flying in 40 years, man. That's it. Yeah. No, but anywho, no, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you guys count your firearms as part of like your net worth?
Oh, for sure.
Like for me, and I didn't for a long time because, long time. I've only been collecting for 2 years, but until recently, I didn't because it was like, well, I don't have any plan to sell it. And then I got to thinking like, well, and then also like, well, and it's not liquid. But then I got thinking about like our cars, right? Like I don't have any plans to sell our car, and it's not a liquid asset, but it costs money and it is worth something, and therefore like it should go on my net worth statement. And so I added mine to my net worth. And again, it's just kind of all keeping it in perspective of your investments too. So, and again, it's all personal. Like for me, like I would be kind of scared to have a large portion of my net worth be in my firearms as compared to like the stock market, you know. But that's me. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely is one of those things. I think when you get to a certain number, it gets a little nerve wracking and difficult.
Yeah.
But
And that's actually quick side point about gun insurance too. So if you've got a collection and it's worth a fair amount of money, make sure that you know what your rental or your house home insurance policy is on it, because a lot of them don't cover things like firearms, and so you want to get insurance above and beyond it. I'm sitting here saying this and convicting myself because I don't have firearms insurance, and I need to get mine because I'm at that point where it's on my net worth statement. So if my
Yeah.
house burned down, I would.
it's a lot more expensive than you might think, or at least like once you get to a certain level, it's like it's kind of for me at least with mine. I looked into it, and it's like it's a really large expense. Like it's more expensive than you might think to insure it. I'm not sure why. But the other thing with that too is if you plan, like if you have, like I have certain guns in my collection that like I would like they're not the best shape. Like I only want one of them. They're not the best shape. If I ever found a better one, I'd probably buy it and sell mine to pay for it, or whatever. And that sort of thing. Whenever you have an insurance policy, if your guns sort of like change, or you have like a rotating collection, it could kind of get more difficult with that, because then you're constantly having to update your policy with new guns, and the new values can change the policy amount and stuff like that. So it's good. It's one of those things that's good to have, but it is also more expensive than you might expect it to be, especially with certain amounts.
On the Discord, Danny, you should check back. I don't remember who it was. I think Holmes was one person, but there was a couple of people that were talking about what policies they had and how much it was. And I want to say it was like $300 a year, which I don't know if that's about how much you were saying, but just double check that. There was some discussion here in the last couple months about it, which I need to go back to, because for me it's like, yeah, $30 a month, like that's not terrible. But if it's crazy expensive, if it's going to be way more than that, then yeah, that does kind of get like, okay, is this worth it, or am I going to spend all this money? And
the ones I saw, it was like multiple thousands a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah.
I don't know how much like total value and stuff like that plays into it, but yeah, it's just been kind of one of those things.
And I recognize it's getting super late, so I want to just toss one last.
I'm gonna have to
topic.
cut out soon.
No, you're good, man. One last topic, quick, and it's kind of sentimental, and we'll cut us all free for the night. But it's just kind of inheritance in guns. So I mentioned at the beginning that my dad passed away, and that's the first guns that I inherited. And I was really close with my dad, and so having these objects means a lot to me. I think in particular because my collecting in a lot of ways is kind of living out an interest that I didn't show in them when he was alive, and kind of I regret that. So my dad was a big hunter, and I wouldn't say that he was interested in Milsurps, but did use hunting guns and target shooting and things like that, and I just, for whatever reason, I didn't get interested in it. And so now I see my interest as a way to kind of honor my dad and just enjoy the history and the being outdoors and all that good stuff that comes with this hobby, and pass it on to my son, and say, hey, this is grandpa's gun, and this shotgun was his grandpa's gun. And so just the layers of generations there. honestly, that's like at some level, right? We're all going to die at some point, and so the purpose behind this hobby is our own enjoyment now, and you can get a little, I think, a little too academic or a little too squishy on this, where people are like, you don't own it. You're just a caretaker for the next generation. It's like, okay, like, yeah, that's a little dorky, but I think the kind of the background to that, or the underlying thing of like, hey, these objects only matter because of the people that carried them, be it the soldiers in the past or the people that you inherited it from, or the people you're going to give it to. And so, no matter how much you love your guns, no matter how much you love the history and what's important about them, try to get your loved ones involved. Be it friends or family. Like, talk to them, stay up late to them, talk about your guns, because eventually your guns are going to be theirs, and you trade any one of your guns to just have a little bit more time. So, kind of sappy, but
I was thinking of all the Deutsche Soldaten on the Eastern Front. They're just caretakers to the next generation.
They didn't know it.
They didn't know it.
Everything they use.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
When I found out I was having a son, my first son, I went out and I bought a Mauser 22 for him. A DSM, the Deutsche Sport Model in 22, made by Mauser. And I got a picture of him. I take a picture of him every 6 months with it. So he was 6 months old, a year old, 18 months, and then here coming up at his 2 year, I'll have a picture with him. So I bought that for him, and that's my plan, is to get him involved, and he has his own gun even before he was born. So
Awesome.
I love it. It's awesome.
I'll teach my kids how to shoot with an M95.
Really, really light loaded.
Hell no.
Just bring them out to the mule farm you invested in.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. I cannot believe you still got me with that.
that's good.
I'm so mad at myself.
No,
I'm like, what? I thought we were talking about
fuck?
firearms and
Buying
investing
mules.
in mules. Oh no!
Yeah. Oh man. And I think that's all I've got on the topic. So it's
It's
probably
an
a good
interesting topic. It's
transition
something
to
we
wrap.
haven't discussed before, or at least
Yeah.
gone this deep into. We've
It's-
hit on it before a little bit.
It's funny because I got asked the other day. I think my mom asked me about that. She's like, "If you had to buy a new house, would you sell your guns?" I'm like, "No. I have enough equity in the house. I could pay for the down payment on my new house. Why would I sell my cool shit?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's all the boring stuff that lets you do cool stuff like this.
Mhm.
Right? It's the fundamentals that, again, right? Like, and it's scalable by income, and it might take you a long time. And so being patient and content with what you're buying is important. Right? I couldn't buy any gun when I was selling my plasma to buy gas money, or for gas money. Like, but I could watch YouTube and learn about them, and then eventually you can buy guns. So
You can
get your
watch
fundamentals
Danny
down,
acquire
and then the
everything.
hobby gets better.
What'd you say, Aaron?
Sorry, Ed.
I said you could watch Danny just acquire everything.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I'm going to a gun show. Here's a really rare Honduran M1917 contract rifle.
Yeah.
What is this, guys? Fuck
Yeah.
you, Danny.
What are you doing this weekend? I'm putting injectors in a fucking dump truck so that way I can buy shit. That's what I'm doing.
Here's the second 43M that I found
Yeah.
for under $500. Oh, I don't know what this is. Why should I buy it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm there are 2 gun shows this weekend. I'm going to one on Friday. It's one of those weird Friday gun shows that opens up at noon. And then there's another show.
We call that tomorrow.
Yeah, but people won't know this is Thursday. We're recording this.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
hey, everybody, today's Thursday. Star Wars Day.
Today's Thursday.
It's
Yeah,
May the 4th. That's why he's wearing the
The
Mandalorian shirt.
Yeah.
We are
so-
actually on the East Coast, 15 minutes from Friday, because it's
Oh.
that late.
There you go. But
We call that real time.
Yeah. Central time is best time zone.
Central.
It's
Yeah.
true. I'm from Iowa originally, so Midwest has my heart.
Oh man, I thought I could tell. I thought I could feel a little Midwest on you. I think so.
Oh, you bet. You betcha. Went to law school in Nebraska, so it's just did the Midwest circuit, and then
Were you a Cornhusker?
yeah, allegedly. That's what they told me anyway.
That's what
Yeah.
they are, is the Cornhuskers.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
I got a little story time. So a friend of mine called me up 2 days ago about the show on Saturday. He's going to meet me there, but he's like, so his uncle was a World War II veteran, and his uncle was helping an old lady move out of her house, and her deceased husband brought back a bunch of stuff from World War II. And so it's this old World War II veteran helping this lady move out of her house that has stuff from World War II. And she's like, I got this stuff over here, and he recognizes these a little skull, and some other little like German things. But that little skull turned out to be an SS skull cap made by Zimmerman, I think. And he didn't know it at the time when he bought it, but it has these two little metal prongs that are folded in on the back, and he noticed there's fabric in there. But when he got it home, he pulled the fabric out with tweezers, and it's like a perfect SS arm eagle. It's like perfect in
Sleeve eagle
and everything. Yeah. And
if it's in bullion, it's an officer sleeve eagle.
I don't know.
Well, you could argue that, but typically they're called officers one. Let's not split hairs. It's 12 o'clock
right.
fucking night.
Anyway, but he found some flags. He found a Krieg's flag and a party flag, and he's like, "Hey man, I'll give you these for what I paid for them if you want them." So I'm gonna meet him on Saturday and hopefully get a couple flags. I'll post them in the Discord if I pick them up. He was like, "They're super wrinkly." He's like, "I'm pretty sure these were like stuffed into something for 60 years." Like in a box for 60 years or whatever, but excited about some flags and whatever else he found. But it should be a good show. It's a collector show. The Kansas City Collectors Association, I think, is the name of it. Something like that. Kansas City Military, something like that. On this Saturday.
Speaking of investments and Discord, this is a plug that everybody should join the Milsurp World Discord, because it is the best money-saving thing you will ever buy if you're in this hobby, because the knowledge and kindness of everybody there is going to make your ability at a show to just like snap a picture and send it to the group, and people will be like, that's a $2,000 gun that they're selling for $500. You should buy that gun.
Yes. Yeah,
it's amazing.
That's a good perk of being in the Discord, and you have to join the Patreon to be in the Discord. So yeah, that's a good. Thank you. That's a good plug to help out the podcast. If you want to donate some money on the Patreon, just message me and I'll send you a link directly, because I don't like put out public links anymore. But yeah, send me a message on Patreon. I'll send you the link. Cool. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Michael. Thanks for sharing the not financial advice. Wait, what's the disclaimer? It's not financial advice, but it's
suggestion.
Advice. Financial suggestions. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I'm glad we could have you on.
Yeah, thanks again, guys, for having me. This is it's super fun to be on, and it's a great group to be a part of.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time.